Hey y'all, you're listening to
Two Wives and a Spark.
As an interracial couple, we've learned a lot over the years, and we're committed to sparking conversations that build community and explore how race influences everything. Literally everything. So that's our focus for this podcast.
Because we believe that intentional conversations are vehicles for change. We've seen the power of them in our relationship over the years, and we know that when we really listen to each other and to ourselves, we see the truth in new and revealing ways.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
You're listening to Two Wives and a Spark.
All right, good people. Welcome back to episode 15 of Two Wives and a Spark. Here we are, Miss Rosen. What are we talking about today, Leah?
You know, last week we talked about things that were on our mind, right? Types of things we've been thinking about, like, you know, from surface level stuff, like, did we get to write this? Is she going to like that? Is she going to like this? To like deeper stuff, right? Like policies and, you know, how the different inequities exist in the world regarding the different policies that exist in the world. And then this week we decided to take some questions from our community and share our answers to those, because these are things that keep coming up that people are thinking about as more and more people keep learning about our pregnancy. So we are going to talk a little bit more about what our community has been asking and share some insight there with y'all.
Yeah. So it's kind of like part 3 of preparing for parenthood as an interracial couple, specifically about building a biracial family. It's a continuation of the past couple weeks. So we're just going to build on all of that. And I'm excited because we have gotten some really good questions, some really thoughtful questions, some good connections and reflections after the first few episodes. So I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah. What I think this moment highlights for me is when you're showcasing something new, like a new story or a new way of like seeing an identity or whatever. There are questions that people have, and there's not always a format or a form or a way for people to ask that. And, you know, I know we have a culture where it's like, there's Google for a reason. Yeah. But I think one of the things that happens in collectivist societies is storytelling. Yes. Right? And we are losing a little bit of the balance of being able to just share stories, which help people learn, versus telling people to like, go do some research. Right.
Go read this article. Go read that book. And it's like, no, it's the stories that help us see ourselves in each other. Yeah. You know, to see our humanity in each other. So.
To see our humanity. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
All right. You want to kick us off? I'm going to kick us off.
Okay, go.
I feel like you always start with the questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions, Mrs. Rosen.
Oh, well, we can both answer them, you know, but.
I mean, I guess you're right. First question that we get the most. Top question we get the most. How did you choose your donor?
Yeah. Yep. That is definitely one that we get quite a bit. And I think we talked about it in episode 11.
Maybe.
In that journey, the pregnancy journey.
Or 8. Yeah, one of those. This season.
Yeah, it was at the beginning. And so we've talked about it lightly, but I think the long answer is we had a lot of intentionality and we also realized how the very system that we're operating in, like the sperm donor world, does not have a lot of African-American men within it. Yes. So I think it was a very eye-opening journey for a lot of reasons. On one hand, you're like navigating this whole new world. It feels like online dating, but for
sperm donors.
Like future recent. I don't know. Like it is so unique. It's so trippy.
It's true,
like
though, because you're looking for certain characteristics. Like you really are like, okay, are they this height? Is their health history like this?
Yeah.
You know, are they black? That's a key thing for us.
Right. Yeah.
So you really are kind of looking through it like a dating profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like dating profile meets online shopping for the most important thing you've ever bought in your whole life.
That's a good merge. That's a good merge.
Like, that's literally what we did. And so it was a journey. It took us about 3 months to really get to a place where,
and 2 donors.
2 donors, true. And it was one of us was more enthusiastic at the beginning than others. It took
Correct.
us as a couple 3 months, but
Correct.
I got a jump start a couple months early. I was
Which,
like,
I
let's
mean,
just look.
that's just our relationship in general. Rachel is like, ooh, an idea. Ticka. And I am like, now's the time to start looking. And she's like, I already made a spreadsheet. We can call that whatever we want to call it, but that is a true dance in this relationship.
Ironically, I didn't make a spreadsheet this time, guys. I didn't.
That's because they let you save the
I
profiles.
know, that's
I was
true.
like, you would have made it.
I would
anyway.
have. They've become very user friendly, I will say. We are very privileged to be in this time and space because we have learned a lot about other lesbian couples over the years, you know, who did used to have to look through binders back in the day.
Back
There
in the
wasn't
day.
all
You
the
had to take some
technology.
notes.
Yeah.
So we'll say, before we even continue down that journey, we chose to go with a donor site versus like a friend,
right,
for a variety of reasons. One of which is just there's a lot of legality when you choose to go with a known donor that I think we would have been smart enough to navigate, but it just is another layer of the process. So we chose to go with a unknown donor using a donor website.
We did, yes. And it was a journey, you know, because at one point we did think about going down the path of a known donor route and
that was
leveraging.
That was a fun time. Shout out to that person. They
Shout
know who
out
they
to
are.
that wonderful person and that hilariously awkward and beautiful conversation that we had with this soul. We were like, you know, maybe this could work. So it took us a long time to figure out what was the right path for us, but we did, you know, spend a lot of time and energy really reflecting on the importance of if I was going to be, because it was really no question at the beginning. Leah was like, you're a couple years older than me. You've always wanted to carry. I think you should carry first because, you know.
Yeah, that was super clear.
You were like, no question.
Yeah, not at all.
And I don't think you were ready to carry. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. I just want to not
You
put
know,
words
my
in your
body
mouth.
and I are still navigating other parts of our relationship before we put a human being in it. I think we need to get those things under control.
That's such a mysterious comment. Anyway.
Still working on my 6-pack.
Okay. That's what, okay. So it was clear that decision was kind of, this is coupling with another question that we get a lot is how did you decide who's carrying? Like, why are you carrying and not Leah? So
Age definitely played a number in that.
Yeah.
And then my willingness or non-willingness.
It's because Leah calls me a cougar.
Is that the sound cougars?
I don't know. That was so weird. No, I'm 3 years older than Leah, 37. So something that we've also learned a lot about is just the reproductive
clock,
the system, so there's the whole rabbit hole that we're not going to go down. But for anybody who is in their 30s and thinks they want to have kids someday and you have questions about that journey, we feel really passionate about it because we've learned a lot about this ticking clock that we have inside of our bodies as women that, you know, actually does really impact and influence your fertility journey. So all that to say, because we knew offhand that I was going to be carrying first, it was really important that our child shares both of our racial identities. That was the second step that was really clear for both of us.
Correct.
And so that, again, caused us to go down the dating cycle of these sites for unknown donors. They're oftentimes called cryobanks. And so you learn very quickly, just like when you're shopping, you put a filter on something for ethnic backgrounds and like cultural backgrounds and racial backgrounds. And very quickly, all the sites that we were on, you know, you went from like 250 options to 8, you know? And so it was in your face how that disparity exists.
Yeah. And so from there, that's the like on the surface layer that matters, like is what we wanted surface wise. But then you have medical profiles that you have to match. Like one of the, I say, benefits of being in a same-sex couple and trying to have a baby is you get a lot of data.
Right.
That if we were just, you know, out here loosey-goosey doing it up, we wouldn't know like, oh, you're actually a carrier for this or you're actually a carrier for that. So you have to do genetic testing.
Right.
And your genetic testing and the donor's genetic testing, there have to be some things that are clear in both of those genetic profiles. So that then limits, again, another number of who you can then choose based on that information.
Right.
So you can go from looking at 200 to then, 8 to then 6, and then you take your pick from that. So and for us, what we really cared about was having some characteristic traits that were similar to mine.
Yep.
Now, on many of these sites, you get a lot of things for free, but then you can also buy packages so that you can see other pieces of information, adult photos, if they offer that, hear their voice, get an essay that they wrote,
Right.
all these different things.
This is capitalism at its finest.
Oh, yeah. So they are making dinero through the donor.
Right. It's like, why can't we just all access this important information? It just kind of blows my mind. But anyway, that's another rabbit hole.
So
yes.
that was another thing. So the donor, we first went with a different donor who, you know, he had a lot of, not similarities physically as I did, but like a lot of characteristics. We agreed on a lot of things. So they were similar in that way. That donor we did 4 IUIs with?
3.
3 IUIs with.
Maybe 4. I can't remember.
Yeah, we did 4 IUIs with. We wrote this all down so that we do know, because one of the things about having a baby this way is you do want them to know their origin story. They don't need to know all these details, but we did write it down.
Yes.
So we did 4 IUIs with that donor, and none of them took. So then we switched donors. You can call the donor agency to find out. They won't tell you the exact number of successful pregnancies, but they'll give you a range. So out of I think we were looking at 3 other donors at the time, and I called to find out like what their range was, and the donor we picked had the most successful pregnancies.
And that's it. Kind of, it's this whole science called like motility, sperm motility.
Yeah, there's a lot. You can geek out about it. Yeah,
we're giving probably TMI, but
maybe not. I mean, these are things that
people
we wish we would have known too.
Yeah.
So from there, we went with that sperm donor, and then we did a couple IUIs that way, IVF, and then got pregnant on an IUI.
Yeah.
But once we did all that, we kind of were looking at my childhood photo and his childhood photo, which we hadn't done to this degree yet.
Right.
And we were like, actually, there's a lot more.
They have so many similar traits.
Yeah, similar traits.
Everybody who sees their childhood photos side by side are like, whoa, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. How similar they look. So that ended up being a beautiful thing. But one of the things, you know, most importantly, the thing that we were thinking about was like making sure that we were a medical match, that there was the racial match, and that there was the core personality traits. Like there were some things that we just really wanted, like we don't care if this person has a PhD,
right?
like all that
stuff. The voice didn't matter
this
like
whole
that to
world,
us.
Yeah, it's a whole
world though.
Anyway,
if you do want to learn more about just like how LGBT families are built, because there's a variety of ways. This is one way, but you also have adoption. You have so many other ways.
Yes.
There's an amazing podcast that we listen to called If These Ovaries Could Talk.
Yes.
And we highly recommend it. It's been awesome to have that as a resource.
Yeah, that gets us to actually another question, which is what resources have been helpful for y'all? You know, like what have you had support? Like what supports have been helpful? So that's definitely been a helpful resource. If These Ovaries Could Talk, that podcast was game changing for us because again, the power of representation, hearing your story, hearing from other LGBT families, couples, all the different journeys, especially when we were going through some of the fertility challenges, it felt so good to feel seen and to be like, oh, we're not alone.
Or to relate to stories like, yes, oh my goodness, we went through a second donor too, or oh yes, that was our experience as well. So that's definitely been a highlight. Yeah. I, as the non-caring mother, or what they call in this world is non-bio mother, I read a book called The Non-Bio Mom. It was not easy to find literature. This is an untapped market. I probably shouldn't share this because I'm thinking about tapping into it, but let's share the wealth. It's an untapped market on the non-bio mom experience. So I found a book. I got it from a bookstore here in Austin called Book Women, and they didn't have a lot of options, but I was like, if I'm going to find one, it's probably going to be there. And that book was a bunch of stories written by non-bio moms and their journey throughout the pregnancy and how they picked like things like the donor, like that was their sole job, or how they picked their names, what they wanted the kid to call them and things of that nature. So it was very helpful and allowed me to feel seen in terms of reading all those stories. So that was super awesome. It's
so important, it's not just like an untapped market, but it's a big blind spot in the parenting space, it's like, yes. And it is really sad that most maternity books down to like what to expect when you're expecting and all the ones that all the, new moms get. And when you're pregnant, you want to like feel seen and you get these books. And then there's like just that little gut punch. It's just like a little jab when the assumption is that the partner is a male, or this assumption is that it's a hetero partner, or the assumption, they're just
the default automatically is. Yeah.
It's so heteronormative. So unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of really great books on mothering that are really inclusive.
Yeah.
There are a couple, we found a couple we can put them in the show notes about lesbian parenting, pregnancy for lesbians. We read those like right when we were starting our journey. But yeah, it has been very eye-opening. Unfortunately, there are not enough resources out there, and this is probably, you put the two of us in a predicament. Like, probably there will be some more resources very soon in the next couple of years, because we feel so passionate about this. Once we have more time and energy to put stuff out there, like this is the start for us, is this conversation in this podcast. But we have a ton of energy around making sure that there's more representation in the parenting space, making sure there's more representation in the maternity space.
Yeah.
Because it's just, when you're on this elation, cloud nine, excited, like euphoric high of like, we're pregnant, this is so exciting. It is the biggest like buzzkill to get, like, you open the book and you're so excited, and then you just don't feel seen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
It does not have to be that way. And then it requires more of us to share our experiences and to know that there's an audience for it, right? To know that someone else is hoping that someone shares their experience, they can feel seen.
Right.
I think that's the motivator for me.
Yeah.
After reading that book, I really felt like I'm so glad these human beings put this book together.
Yes.
Even if it's one, before they put the book together, it was none. So
right.
I think remembering that it requires us to want to share for the sake of others sometimes. So I think that's important.
Yes. And we got to give a shout out to these like YouTube influencers.
And TikTok influencers.
They're like just the sweetest couple whose mission is so similar to ours about increasing representation and normalizing same-sex parenting. They're called Team Two Moms.
Yeah. They're doing
awesome.
some amazing work and just getting visible. Truly, that's their mission, is to just be visible as they are, so that people recognize and understand that they exist and that we exist.
Yeah.
And that's it's beautiful. And they do a lot of cool videos that get at content in such a simplistic way for people to be able to access it.
Yeah.
From all walks of life. But it's also so deep all at the same time. So
Right. It's so beautiful. They bring so much joy, and their family is just
beautiful,
amazing. It's the little things, truly. Yeah, definitely.
So shout out to
Anything
them.
else you can think of in terms of what resources, books? Oh, I can think of the organization that sparked a lot of this, actually, Family Equality. They put on the panel.
Yes, I almost won our baby in a
raffle.
A raffle. So close. I was second or third. So close.
Family Equality is doing such important work out there in the world, just wanting to hold space for LGBTQIA plus families embarking on the parenting journey. They do panels and different events, and they just normalize that we need more representation in this space. And it was because of that panel that we got connected to not only. We went into that panel with our eyes completely wide-eyed and like we didn't know
no information,
anything,
which is why they hold the panel.
Yeah. And it was just so beautiful. And so shout out to Family Equality and all the great work they're doing. So
yeah, those are some key ones. We'll add some more books that we read early on to help us know if we were even ready to start the journey.
That's true.
I'm just blanking on the name of that book right now, but
okay.
I think it's a good one to add. They have a lot of good questions in it.
Nice.
That I think all families should read.
All right. What other questions we got in here in our list?
What do you want to be called, Mrs. Rosen?
Yeah. So what is our little one going to call us? A lot of people are so curious about this. So people who know us really well, and they know we have a dog named Ella, who is about to be 10 years old. Leah has a voice for Ella, and Ella talks in a human voice vis-a-vis Leah a lot. And Leah calls herself via Ella. Ella calls Leah Mada, M-A-D-A. Do you want to explain why?
I think when I first, when Ella first asked me to be a part of her life, in the card that she wrote me via her mother.
That's true.
Mrs. Rosen. At that time, I think she even asked, like, well, you asked via Ella, what do you want me to call you?
Because we were taking things to the next level. This was like right after our break.
This was after. And at the time, it just instantly rolled off my tongue. I was like, oh, I'm not 100% your mommy, because like you had her for like 2 years before I came along, and I'm not a dad, but I'm a little bit of both. You know, I do a little bit of everything. So I wanted both of those things to be recognized. So Mata is how that came about. And it's stuck ever since. I think it's a unique name. It's a name I haven't heard anywhere else. I think it fits, if you know me personally, kind of all parts of my personality and how I represent myself in the world. So
because of your dad jokes?
Yeah, because my dad jokes too. So I'll start leaving some of those for y'all on the podcast. But yeah, that's for sure where the name comes from. Now, what I have heard and learned is I'm not trying to stay too attached to the name. I think I am going to buy a hat for the delivery day just to wear around so the nurses know what to call me. But I have heard, like, also be ready. Your child will probably call you what sticks for them. So I'm also making room for that. But Mata is what it is right now.
That's what she's going with. So it was a journey. It was like, we went back to the drawing board for a minute there. You were like, maybe you could be mommy and I could be mama. And then we kind of like reimagined what it could look like. A lot of lesbian couples go the mommy mama route or mommy, like mama L, mama R, or like there are just so many different ways that it looks. So yeah. Ada. Yeah. And I'm going to go by any of the other ones. Honestly, I don't, because it's so clear to you that you want to stay in the Mada lane. To me, that bridges the masculine feminine energy that you bring to the space. Yeah. And so if you would have said, because we both have a lot of pride in being women too. Yeah. And so if you would have said, I do really want to go by mama, then I would have said, okay, I'll be really firm about going by mom or mommy, but because those are not names that you really are connected to right now, I don't feel super attached, and I want to let her decide. If she says mama first, then cool. If she says mommy, I feel okay. I think she's going to determine what that looks like.
Scientists say that she'll say da first. Yeah. So
this is why she chose.
I think I'm winning.
She's going to turn it backwards. She'll be like Dama for the first year. She's not competitive at all, people. Okay.
I want breakfast.
So she may switch it up. But for now, the answer is Mada. And how do you feel about being called? So this is another question that comes up. It's like part 2 of this question. Like, how do you feel about people saying, like, our daughter's moms? Would you prefer the title parent? Or are you okay with people saying that she has 2 mommies or 2 moms?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really rich question. And maybe it'll change when I hear it multiple times, but like it doesn't cause me any tension or misalignment when I hear people say like, oh, she's gonna have 2 moms. Like I want the shirts that are like team 2 moms, all that. So that doesn't, I don't have any grief with it. What I've noticed is I say parents a lot, like, oh, as her parents, as her parents, as her parents. I don't hear myself saying as her moms, as her mommies. And a friend of ours asked that recently, like, well, do you feel more attached to this identity around being a parent? And I do. I think my identity around being a parent versus it being like, I'm your mom is a little bit stronger. And I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that you're birthing her and I'm not, but I do feel a deeper connection to this idea of that I'm one of her parents. If she were to say, you're my mommy, I'm not going to be like, no, actually, sweetie, I'm your parent. You can call me Mata. I don't feel this attachment. I'm very curious to know what connection she and I will have in terms of the name, right? Yeah. Like, even for me, like, what am I going to call her? Like, sweetie pie, cutie pie? Is she going to be like, she'll have moments where, we've been saying she a lot, but she could have a moment where that's not what she wants to be called, right?
Exactly.
I'm filling space right now with content, but I'm also leaving space where I'm not stuck to it.
Yes, exactly. And that gets to the gender sex question that we get a lot. Yeah. That was like, did you, first, the conversation about gender and sex is usually a teachable moment with a lot of folks in our circles. Yeah. And so when people would ask, like, are you going to find out the gender? We would kind of reframe it and be like, well, we're going to find out the sex. She'll determine her gender when she's the age to know that. Yeah. And so we had some of those conversations. And so, yeah, I think it is something that we feel very strongly about and that we're very conscious of, which is her sex will determine our association with her pronouns until told otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's room for that.
Yes. We want to make sure there's space for that.
For sure. And like that goes back to what we were talking about when we were thinking about like stories and books and exposure. I think giving room for her to grow into that, right? It's okay to, I think, know thyself one way and to grow into knowing thyself differently. So
yeah,
that's something we get asked a lot. And that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. And we'll see.
And it is good food for thought. Just from an inclusive language perspective, this is just something to think about for our trans friends and family and folks who are on the non-gender binary role, right? Like saying parent is a more inclusive way to roll, right? Versus
correct.
assuming, oh, okay, my assumption is you're both women, so I'm going to say you have two moms.
Right.
I think in general, when in doubt, what we appreciate is when people are mindful of the language and say parent, just to be thoughtful of folks who are maybe on the more fluid spectrum, right?
Yeah, and what I've appreciated about our family and friends is them asking,
Yeah.
right? I think, again, I know people in our society are always like, well, that's what Google's for. But, like, you can't Google a personal experience. Like, I can't Google, like, what does Leah want to be called, right? So I think having enough faith in the relationship to know it's okay to ask these types of questions or to connect with the people around you and to say, like, hey, can I check in with you about, like, and to also realize that's one experience. Like, what we're sharing is our experience, how we're navigating this journey of parenthood. It may be very different for someone else that you know that's in a same-sex relationship, or for our same-sex listeners. Like, it might be different for y'all too. This is our experience, and I think it's important for us to be able to share it without worrying about, like, speaking for the population.
Yes.
But we are just speaking for ourselves.
That's right. Yeah. All right, we got a couple more questions to run through.
Let's go with, will she know the donor or not? We picked, I want to say we did this intentionally, but we actually didn't. But the donor we picked it's a, what do they call it? A open donor or something like that. So when she turns 18, if she chooses, she can reach out and the agency will connect her to the donor.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I know this was an explicit conversation that we had and that we wanted to be available. And I think certain sperm banks have, like, the ones that they show you are the ones that have open. Or
yeah, we might have clicked it.
I think we clicked that filter because you can filter it out. But I know that it was something that we thought that we want this to be true. And then I can't remember.
Yeah, that meant, I mean, I know a lot of people ask this question, like,
yeah,
oh, well, do you want your, child to grow up with any type of male energy or whatever? I didn't grow up with my biological dad, but my relationship, as I said in the last episode, with my uncle, who we called Uncle Dad, influenced my upbringing in some positive ways, amazing ways. And so I think having all types of energy, safe energy, rich energy around our child is necessary. Yes. So I'm not in any way in our relationship not wanting that. I think, to some degree, I wish it was actually open so that when she wants it, it could just be, and that she doesn't have to wait till this, like, who picked the age 18 in the first place. Like, I was 11 when I was like, so who's my dad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't 18. So I think I wish that it could be sooner. And when, if she asks sooner, then we'll do our best to reach out to the agency and see if we can find out sooner. But I don't have any problem with her wanting to know that part of her origin story. Like, I'm 34 years old and I'm still trying to figure out, like, should I do, like, a DNA thing? Like, should I try to figure out who this person is? Do I have siblings? What's this other half of my story? And mostly really thinking about it. I think about it every year, but I think I'm getting more and more serious about it now that we're having a kid.
Yeah.
Because I could be cousins with this donor. Who knows?
Oh, God.
Okay,
stop.
I'm just kidding.
No, not happening.
I mean, come on. Wouldn't that be kind of interesting?
No, there's no way, because
DNA would be.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, we're stopping there. But let's go on to the next question, because that just took my brain down a whole different rabbit hole. Well, that goes to, like, will you tell her origin story, and when will you tell her the origin story? How will you tell the origin story?
Yeah, we're pretty blessed right now. Like, in today's society, there are actually more authors. You can find more books about how to talk to your child about their origin story if they have a donor than you can about being the non-bio mom, which is really interesting. Yeah, there's more children's books about that. So I think we'll utilize books to help her start to understand that, and then keep everything developmentally appropriately. As educators, that matters to us. We're not about to tell her everything we're telling y'all, like, in one sitting.
Right.
But I do think that door will stay open, and the more curious she gets, the more we'll continue to share.
Absolutely. And I think when you say we're really blessed to have access to these resources, like truly, I feel so lucky to be doing this right now. Because even just 5 years ago or 10 years ago, these books weren't out there. And so we're so thankful to have access to these resources and again, to these stories and to, if these ovaries could talk, for opening our eyes to these books being out there. I think there is a lot there for sure.
Yeah.
All right. What else? We got a couple more.
Which one do you want to do next? You choose.
How did you talk to your community about your fertility and pregnancy journey? Like, how did it start? Where are you at with it?
You want to go first?
I don't know. Either way.
She's blushing.
Am I?
Yeah.
I think I'm just warm. It's these hormones, y'all. I've never felt so warm. It's so crazy. Anyway, go ahead. You go.
I love it. I love it. Ever since I came out, which was in 2009, I think the power of doing that helped me realize the power of my meanness, if that makes sense. Like, no one else can tell your story the way you can. Yeah. So when it came to our fertility stuff, there's a balance in some ways, right, of not oversharing, but also creating context for people. Because I do think our story is still not a default story. And I think it's important to be able to share details so people can hear something different and have a different narrative in their minds and in their thoughts. So once we were in the clear after the first trimester, that's when I told my staff and my colleagues, who some of whom knew we were trying, but not all. And so that was really cool. It was cool to get people's immediate reactions in a unique way, because I shared via email because I didn't want to take up. No, that's not true. I did. I shared at the end of a PD, actually. And that was really cool to kind of hear people's natural reaction to that. Yeah. But I think it's because I have been consistently just being myself throughout this experience, right? Like, this particular group of colleagues has been through our marriage with us, like all those things. So I think that's been pretty interesting. And then sharing with my school family, like the larger family, parents, that has been really eye-opening for me. Like, I held off on saying it until just recently, and it was shocking how open and inviting and caring and loving people were. I wasn't sure how families were going to take it. We are an inclusive, for all school, but sometimes people are choosing what's best for their family for a variety of reasons. So I wasn't positive how people were going to take it. And it was pretty cool just to be poured into in a real unique way. One of the reasons I chose to share it with families through our family platform was because for many pregnant women, you're the pregnant one. So people see it happen. And then people are like, wait a minute, you're pregnant. Oh my goodness. They don't have that. We could have had a baby and them not know. So I was really torn. There was no roadmap for how do I do this? Is it too much to just share it, or what should I do? And families were like, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing with us. Thanks for letting us in on your joy. It was, I feel very blessed and thankful for our community and being able to pour that love and know that energy is coming toward our child.
I think it's a reflection of how much you pour into them. I see every year Christmas presents and cards that she gets from families and kids, and it's just a reflection to me. They're a mirror of how much you give to them and how much of your heart you pour into those kids. So I think it's a beautiful thing that you get to receive it back.
Yeah, it has been. Thank you for saying that. That's true. What about you?
Well, you mentioned work stuff. I mean, I think family, friends, all that is part of our community too, So it's I could speak to that a little bit. I think our journey, we've mentioned this before, it's been all throughout the pandemic, the never-ending COVID-19 world that we've all adjusted to. So it's kind of trippy when you're behind a computer screen for all your meetings and events, and you don't have as many normalized social gatherings as we did pre-COVID. So it actually has been fascinating to realize that whoever we welcome into this part of our journey, it's really been intentional. We've had a lot of FaceTime calls with people. We've had, our closest people who are proximate to us, like my family who live close, have gotten to see the physical journey,
right?
And close friends who live here in Austin. But other than that, everything else, we've just been really intentional about it. It's been a very peeling away layers of a beautiful journey, of just okay, our inner circle, this is the safest, smallest protected space that we have while we're still vulnerable right at that post first trimester, each stage, there have been some vulnerabilities that we've been really thoughtful and clear about. So we've been really intentional about incrementally welcoming people into our space. We talked about that in a previous episode. So I think just intentionality has been like the word that comes to my mind, from family to colleagues to friends. We've been really aware of how much what we say people hear.
Right.
It sounds like a silly thing to say, but whatever words we choose to use and however we choose to share and announce it, people get to receive it that way. So I think that's been cool.
That's been really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. 2 more.
2 more?
Yeah.
I'm ready. Go for it.
Do you want to have more kids, and how will you decide that?
Our money. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kind of kidding. We do want to have more kids. We both come from, Rachel has 2 siblings. Well, Rachel has 4 siblings, 2 full-blooded sisters and then 2 stepsisters. And then I have a brother and a sister. So neither of us grew up, all that to say, neither of us grew up single children. And we're the youngest, and we do believe in birth order. Youngest are the coolest. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to insult anybody else. But so yeah, we do want to have more kids. Will they have the same donor? That's currently a discussion that we're having, because sharing both identities for the both of us matters.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about that. Who will carry the second child, third child? We've been talking a lot about that. So there's some conversations happening, but we do want to have more kids.
Yes. We just don't know what that journey is going to look like. We have a lot of openness, and the door is open for that conversation. We're just taking our time and letting ourselves be in this journey right now. And we'll talk about, I think also our child is going to teach us about what she needs and when. And so that will also help us know what is realistic at that timeline, you know?
Yeah. We're just hoping she doesn't want a cat.
Yeah. That's very strong for Leah's heart. But we did at the very beginning, when we first wanted to become parents, we actually were really clear that we thought we would do foster to adopt.
Correct. We are fully trained.
Yeah, we are trained. We were almost certified. And then we just had this gut experience where we shifted gears. But that's definitely something that's on
our journey.
Yeah,
for sure.
somehow, some way, we know that might be on our journey too. So
Correct.
just putting that out there. And yeah, so to be continued on that one. We'll have more insights probably in a couple years. Okay, last one is about, because we both have a background in education. People are like, oh my gosh, are y'all going to be like,
Those
what kind of
parents.
school is your kid going to go to? Are you going to be those parents? Are you going to work at the school your kid goes to?
100%. 100%.
How do we feel about just the idea of, because we have worked so closely in education, what is most important to us when we're looking at like schools and all
Yeah,
that?
I mean, we've both worked. I've worked in district schools, charter schools. The only school I haven't worked in is private. Is that true? Yeah. I went to private schools. So I think, getting a feel for like what type of school in that regard is one thing that we're talking about. We totally believe in community schools, like neighborhood schools. So that's something that we've been discussing. Will we work at the school? Part of me, I am learning that I am the parent that needs to get out the car and do drop off and like watch you walk down. I'm learning that about myself through our dogs. Well, not dog, because we only have one now, but I am learning that. So will we work at the school? I probably will.
She probably will.
Just gonna
both of us, if we don't work there, then we will volunteer. Like, we will be involved. We will be very involved, because we feel so strongly about the power of education.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the place where you learn how to be a person in our society. And so we want her for sure to learn in a diverse environment, and not just like talking about diversity. We want to actually see diversity and know the parent dynamics at the school, the staffing dynamics at the school. So,
and just like it says something when I think it's beyond, like, we laugh and we're like, yeah, probably one of us will probably work at the school, most likely Leah. But to me, it's a cheesy answer to some people, like they laugh. But honestly, as an educator, as folks who have worked in multiple schools, there is no bigger honor than that you can put out there as to having your child go to the school that you work at.
Correct.
Because that shows that you believe so much in the space and the people. And so I think that's really what's underneath why, if that comes down to it, we'll be involved, because we want to, like, that's going to be really important to us.
That is correct.
Yeah.
All right. Did we forget anything?
I think we got through the whole list, all the questions. One thing that's not a question that we did get shared with us from one of our amazing listeners is this Code Switch episode that talks all about interracial couples. And it's a fascinating study that is about kind of mental health and marriage and interracial dynamics. And so
there's a lot of cool data in it.
So we're listening to that, and we're eager to hear if y'all heard that episode too, because we haven't finished it yet, but it is really eye-opening. Yes. And it's like it's giving us a lot of more fuel and food for thought to consider as we talk about just the dynamics of being interracial parents and this interracial marriage. So excited about that. We look forward to hearing what other resources and questions come up for y'all. This was really fun to dig into some of these big questions.
Yes, it's been nice to finally just put them on a list of like, okay, here are the things we keep getting asked. And I appreciate the courage and insight that people have had to be thinking, oh, I want to ask them this question. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah.
And we look forward to learning more with y'all and sharing more with y'all.
Yes, yes. All right, y'all. Until next week, we are sending you lots of love and
light.
Thanks for joining us today, y'all. We'd love to stay connected on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us at 2 Wives and a Spark, all spelled out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend so we can keep the sparks of connection going. If you want access to our episodes as soon as they drop, click that subscribe button. Every rating and review helps others find us, so thank you in advance for letting us know what you think.
And special shout out to Journey Girl Magic Productions.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
Thank you for listening to 2 Wives and a Spark.